Welcome to the virtual community of the Center for Spiritual Living, Napa Valley. I'm Reverend Jay Lang. I'm the spiritual director of this community. Our beliefs are based on ancient wisdom as well as progressive spirituality. Our mission is to show a way to live fully and wholly through the practical application of spiritual principles. Each week, we offer insights and steps on how to heal and reveal the divine truth in each of us and how to help create a world that works for all people and all life on this planet. So thank you for joining us, and we so appreciate your participation in our virtual community. The thing that's funny about Valentine's Day is with all the greeting cards, hype, and social media and cultural beliefs, it's a surprise anybody has a good Valentine's Day. You know, there's such high expectations of it. Or some people just lower the bar a lot, going, oh, it's just Valentine's Day. I do appreciate, as we talk about a deeper connection with friendships, there's a Galentine's Day. I don't know if you heard about that, but the day before Valentine's Day is a reminder of how important our friends are. So that's good to have that. I think also this Valentine's Day is often confused with Groundhog Day being in the same month. And as we come out of our hole of existence to have relationships, sometimes we see our shadow and quickly jump back into the hole. And the shadow that I'm talking about, of course, is our deeper, disowned parts of ourselves. And as we approach this topic of sacred sexuality, I think there's nowhere in our belief system where there's more shadow than in our sexuality, in our belief system. And yet this is really an energy system. This is more than sex is. The sex is just an aspect of our sexuality. It's by no means all of it. It's about how our chakra and our energy systems are within our own body. And it's important to be in this body because this body informs us of so much. It allows us to know a greater understanding of who we are, as well as it has a warning system within it that is similar to driving a car. When the warning engine light goes on, that if we attend to those, and we can know there's things going on in our body we need to pay attention to, either emotional or physical or spiritual revelation that is happening, but we are in this body for a reason, and we want to open up to what that is. And instead of being afraid of this aspects of our disowned selves, or that part which is uncomfortable, in fact, we invite them, we dialogue with them, we allow them to reveal so that we can be an expression of our whole self, so we can be this colors of love, that we are a full expression. As we step into this deeper mind, body, and soul, that's a full expression of this. I don't know about you, but I think there's some naturalness to this body. And it wasn't until probably the last several hundred years that there has been shame around the body. Indigenous cultures and earth-based religions have all been very natural about our body. I don't know about you, but the first pictures of somebody I saw naked besides myself would be in National Geographic, right? And you saw those pictures, and there was no shame there. They were just being who they were. And I think I kept staring at it because it was so odd that they were just very natural in their expression of it. And so it is our body. It's this myths we have around that. Often in the name of in religion, that there's this shame, a separation of our body and spirit, as if it's not one. I don't think we have to go too far to think of religious beliefs that set this shame and this tone. In the very beginning of the Bible, the story of creation, and how that man and women were made in the likeness of God. And we believe here this likeness of God is in the consciousness of God, in the light of God, in the love of God. But then Adam and Eve chose to eat this apple, according to the story, right? They ate the apple of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And once they did that, God said, oh, you can't stay here any longer, because they experienced this opposition, this apparent opposition, which is how we experience things in our human life. And then the fascinating thing, what I love about this story, here we don't really believe in an outside God, but an inner God and a God around us. But the story of how God basically kicked them out of the Garden of Eden, where there was oneness, and put them in a skin, literally, like clothed them in a skin, which is an incarnation. It's a mythological story to me about incarnation into a body. The way I picture it is like God putting us in like a little onesie, like a little pajama thing, and what color is this one going to be, Oh, dark chocolate brown looks nice here. Beg your pardon? One pink and one blue. But that's, so we're in the skin, we're clothed in the skin, we have this body, and the metaphorical story also says that once you're in this body, you're going to feel pain, and you're going to feel joy. It's the body we have. And yet, this whole idea of our energetic system that's part of who we are, this nervous system, the meridians, the chakras that run up and down us, it is the expression, it is all of us. It's the wholeness of who we are. There's no aspect of us that's not divine. Now, our sexuality can be sacred, or it can be profane at the same time. It can be abusive. There's no doubt about it. And the more mindful we are, the more willingness we are to let those parts of us that are hidden or that we have suppressed or culture has suppressed, the more we allow it to come up and be the truth of who we are, the more whole and complete expression we're going to be. I mean, we're whole, complete, and fabulous just the way we are. And if we leave part of us suppressed, we're not expressing that wholeness in that way. So we can open up to this idea. Now, what I also know about this is when things are suppressed, it's natural part of ourselves that's still coming out. It's still going to bubble up. It's still going to be revealed. But because we keep it suppressed and we're trying to keep it locked down, then it's going to come out in unhealthy ways, one way or the other. And there's no probably more extreme or sad example than what happened to some of our religious leaders. Particularly the priests who have taken a vow of abstinence, and yet they're sexual beings like anybody else, and so that's come out in inappropriate, unhealthy ways, and it's done harm to others. And it's not only the Catholic religion, all denominations have had abuse come out of it. A youth organization like Scouts, athletic teams. And it's all about this suppression that when we're not living as a whole being, then abuse can happen. And even on top of that, these organizations have been uncomfortable by what happened. They didn't want to deal with the reality, so they suppressed it. They sent priests and other people. They either didn't deal with it and it continued, or they sent them to another location, like that would help, right? And this is all because we're not willing to deal with the shadow aspect. We need to allow it to model, to be the truth of who we are. And I'm so glad, even though it's so hard right now to hear these stories of abuse and harassment and sexual violence, it's coming out and it's coming to the light. And in the light, in the mindfulness, we can do something about it. We don't have to be stuck in old ways. And so we need to do our part in this, in our healing our own sexual trauma, our own disowned self, this that we think of it as. And we need to bring the sacred to our sexuality. And the first way we do that is just to be in our body. That may seem like an obvious thing, but I know I spent quite a bit of time when I first on the spiritual path. There were things in my life I didn't want to deal with. And people saw me as a spiritual being, but I was living out of the upper part of my chakras. And I wasn't dealing with the lower part. And to be a whole self, I began to recognize that it is this energetic system that we need to allow. To me, it's similar to the way that we might have a room in our house, or perhaps it's our garage or a shed we have where we stuff everything in, right? And we close the door quickly because we don't want to deal with any of that stuff. And yet, after a while, it begins to smell and be dusty, and it's still in there. You know, we open the door and try to put more stuff in there. It's still that way. I have a room like that in my house, and it was designed to be a place where I go in and read and study, prepare for talks, and be sacred. But now it's just turned into a messy, chaotic thing, and I don't even like going in there. So after the meditation retreat, I really wanted to recommit to having a sacred place. And so I'm cleaning it out slowly, you know, and I need it. And that's so, I just thought, what a metaphor this is like for our body and our energetic system, where there's a part of it that makes us uncomfortable that we don't want to deal with. And so this idea of our sexuality, now it's important to note that sex is an aspect of our sexuality, but not necessary for us to access this energetic system in our body. That it's our whole self, our whole being, the truth of who we are. And so we find this body that we're in that has, at the base of our spine is the sacral bone, the sacrum, and it is the energetic system, and it's literally root in the word sacred. So we allow and are aware of this energy system that we talk about as our chakras, and it's important to talk about these. So not only on an energetic system that some may not be aware of it, or not really think about it that much, or not think about energy in our bodies, but at least on a mental aspect, you can imagine what we're talking about here, that the root chakra, the very base of who we are at the base of our chakra, is about our belonging, our identity of who we are, our tribal identity. And then we move up to the sacral chakra, that is about sensuality and pleasure and creativity. And this is, I feel, it's the central aspects of ourselves. We move up into the solar plex, which is the doing, the personal power that it's there, and it's the doingness in the world, up into the love, the heart chakra, that you love people, you're connected with people, and then into the throat chakra, which is the expression of spiritual self, the third eye, which is the intuitive part, and the crown chakra, which is the knowledge and understanding, the greater I am. So when we talk about this, it's necessary for us to be this grounded self, aware of all aspects of ourselves, but we want to bring it into the sacred. But we can't be sacred from here up. It's not our whole self. But we are all seeking to belong, to be connected. And it starts with a very basic thing. I'm on Zoom with my youngest grandson, Odin. He's like 6 months old, very young. But everything he does goes to his mouth, you know, or he has to feel it or experience it, and he moves slowly. And so, you know, a child that age is totally in the sensual process of grasping and understanding the world. When they're uncomfortable, they cry. When they're happy, they laugh. I mean, it's all about their experiences. And so we are in this body too, and we may have evolved and advanced our expressions, but we're still the basic being of this humanness that we're in, that we feel. So we want to bring this belonging, this relationships that we want to connect with, that evolve into a greater love, a greater expression that is a spiritual one, a greater clarity and insight. And the I am that is in the crown chakra is an I am that is connected with spirit itself, that is oneness. It is as us that we are spirit. So it starts with the I am, that's the small I, and moves up our chakras to be one of spiritual identity. The connection we want to feel, the relationships we have raise in their healthiness and their vibrancy. And because we're in our personal power, it's not a codependent thing. It's an understanding and a clarity that we are connecting in life. And this way, we allow our body to ground us and also raise up to a greater expression of it, a maturity, abundance. And as we continue to recognize this in our sacred sexuality, we choose to find the middle way. Now, a middle way is simply the way somewhere between indulgence and restraint. That we find that middle way. We think of our sexuality as being similar to food or drink, that you can overindulge with food and drink. You can become addicted to food and drink. But we all have to eat, right? We can choose what we drink. Doesn't have to be alcohol necessarily, but we choose that which, the way we express what works for us, the middle way between indulgence and restraint. I love the story of Buddha and his enlightenment. If you remember his story, he grew up in a palace of not having any wants at all, every kind of luxurious food he could have, every toy, everything he never had a want. It wasn't until he was a young adult when he went outside of the surroundings of his palace and he saw people suffering. And he didn't even realize there was such a thing as suffering, of aging, of disease, of poverty. So he decided to go out in the world to experience suffering. So he had a life as where he would eliminate, like almost eat nothing and sleep on the ground and have little clothing. So he experienced this as an aesthetic that he had this nothingness, but he realized he was suffering for no reason, that there had to be a middle way between ultimate pleasure and ultimate sacrifice. So this is how he came up with these ideas of this middle path, and the same is true for us and our pleasure seeking, our relationship seeking, that we seek an expression that is creative, powerful, life affirming, life accepting, healthy, and allows us to be a full expression of the divine in so many ways, that we can open up to this. And like Adam and Eve who have eaten the apple, we are in a skin, we are in an opening of who we are, and we can experience the fullness of life by allowing ourselves to be in this body and to experience it fully and creatively. Our creativity comes from this power and passion. The passion, we talk about that, can become compassion, can be connectedness, can be opening in this way. And so we embrace our sacred sexuality and we live life fully. This is at New Tech High School. They're having a class on healthy relationships. So on a psychological level, there's ways that we can find a greater sense of love also, that either from a spiritual perspective or a psychological perspective, that we can create relationships that support ourselves, that nurture us, and we nurture others. And embracing this sacred sexuality, that we channel this natural energy that flows in our body and an awareness of our body. We recognize when there's a misalignment in our body or something that stops the flow, because it's in stoppages of the flow of our energetic system that sometimes that's what creates dis-ease in our body, a change in our body. So we want to allow this to channel this pathway of moving, this pathway of creating, this pathway of passion. And for some it's just as simple as kindness, and for others it's a deeper connection we have. I love to read the stories of the mystical poets because their relationship with love is so different. I have a book at home called The Books of Love, and in it are probably a dozen of these mystical poets. And they write about love, but not one of the poems is about romantic love. It's about a deep love for spirit. And the Hindus, their chanting is often about love, about connecting with Spirit, and this desire to connect deeper with Spirit. And the same goes for certain kinds of evangelical Christians who praise, in their worship that it's a passionate wanting to seek a deeper relationship. And I think passion belongs in our prayers. We can be a little too Protestant here, a little too passive in our prayers of good will come when it comes, That's the way it was meant to be. We can go out in our prayers and be in our prayers full of feeling, full of passion, seeking something more in our lives. We let go of the attachment of it. And it is okay to have this passionate relationship and our spiritual connection, as well as with our friends, as well as with our family and our primary relationships, because it is the nature of who we are. So these mystical poets like Rabia, who is this woman who as a young age had a rough life. She was orphaned, and she ended up for at least part of her life as a prostitute, and yet she always saw her relationship with the divine as being the primary thing, no matter what she was doing. She called the trials and tribulations bringing her closer to God. She even called Spirit her lover, and how it never thought of her as impure. And she said this: one day he did not leave after kissing me. Not meaning a partner of a physical form, but of Spirit, who was with her in this way. And St. Francis of Assisi, you think of him as, being this lover of animals, but he also was this deeper connection with Spirit, said only love honors God. And prayer irrigates the earth and the heart. Meister Eckhart: only a dream could this happen, such terror that I've seen in eyes and men abusing women and cries from the pores of the sky. So how to awake the sleeping? I was consumed in thought, trying to make sense of a very unwanted experience, when a bird's tune called me from a nearby limb. And this brought me understanding, that audience with love, and the way beauty can let us hold her in mind and arms. The passionate earth's whisper grew so loud I woke, and now I cannot deny all is God. So this idea of beauty not being a physical form, but a quality of God that we seek, that we appreciate in the beauty of people, in the beauty of all life, and our oneness, that is the deeper truth. St. Thomas Aquinas: God revealing itself to itself is divine intimacy. St. Catherine of Siena: I won't take no for an answer, God began to say, when he opened his arms each night waiting for us to dance. And finally, Mira, my favorite of all. Her poems to Spirit are almost erotic at some point, because she amorphizes Spirit as having lips and this. So she goes, this is what she said: you should act more responsibly, God, with all that gorgeousness you possess. She also said, you have made all my friends nuts and basically unfit to do much else but dream of you and plot of drawing your mouth close again. Spirit left its fingerprints on a glass the earth drinks from. Every religion has studied it. Churches and temples use the geometry of those lines to establish rites and laws and prayers and our ideas of the universe. I guess there's no telling how out of hand and wonderfully wild things will get when our lips catch up with its. And finally, from Mira, I think the women will enjoy this one. She said, 3 years went by and I've not been with a man. I consulted the moon about this, and she said it had been even longer for her, and she didn't think she was missing much. So there you have it. So our sacred sexuality is part of who we are. And if we deny it, we're denying that which is our divine calling. We have been incarnated in this body, so we just allow this energy, this sense of who we are, this wholeness of who we are in all ways. I want to end by adding a quote by Ernest Holmes, our founder, who said, God has imparted our life to us, placing no limitation or condition that would restrict us other than this. Our life must be lived constructively, in unity and love and sympathy with everything around us. If we expect to live to the fullest, I believe that every person is to be born to be creative and to live to the fullest and to be happy and glad and prosperous and whole. This is what we're meant to be. This is why we're here. We're going to feel the juxtaposition of apparent opposites, of the pain and the joy, and in it all we can find the truth of who we are, which is this whole being who's creative and joyous and perfect in the way we express ourselves. And so it is. So as we open up to prayer in this moment, we know the truth of who we are. We are this spiritual being. We are this life that is abundant. So we just allow Spirit to reveal and heal in us all that is good and all that is right. And we just accept and are this sacred self in all ways. And so it is.
So it is.
Thank you for listening today. Please know that wherever you are, Spirit is also. And that good things are happening through you in every situation you experience. Feel free to check out our website for upcoming events, and if you're able, join us for one of our Sunday services at 9 a.m. or 10:30. In the meantime, know that you are led by Spirit, guided by wisdom, and protected by love. And so it is.